I wanted to share this quote unquote conversation I had with ChatGPT AI. I started off here with generate an image of Princess Leia as she was held captive by Jabba the Hutt in a snow themed outfit. They live in an ice world instead of a desert land. AI replied, "We're so sorry, but the prompt may violate our guardrails concerning similarity to third party content." And my next reply was, "Is it okay to render a Star Wars themed image?" The AI said, "Yes, it's okay. What isn't allowed is generating copyrighted characters like Princess Leia or Jabba the Hutt in ways that closely replicate their specific recognizable appearances from the films. If you'd like, we can create various Temu versions. As long as the characters are original and not direct copies of existing copyrighted characters, we're good to go. If you'd like, tell me, should the heroine resemble a classic sci-fi rebel princess? Do you want the ice world to feel like The Empire Strikes Back? Should the alien ruler be intimidating, grotesque, regal, or cartoonish? Give me the vibe." I next decided to dive into a little bit more philosophy with the AI. I said, AI does not extrapolate independently through a priori reasoning. It conglomerates data and information which is already existing. Does this not beg the question that everything you generate is in some way a copyright infringement of existing creative thought? AI chimed in, "That's a thoughtful question, and it gets at the heart of how generative models actually work. Short answer, no. Generating new content does not automatically mean it's copyright infringement. You're right, the models are trained on existing data, but during training, we do not store copies of works. It does not retain access to a database of images or text. It does not retrieve and remix specific pieces," which is interesting. I thought it did. Instead, it learns statistical patterns, distributions of language, structure, style, composition, color, relationships, narrative tropes, etc. An analogy, a human artist studies thousands of paintings. They internalize the anatomy, lighting, brush techniques. When they create something new, it is influenced by what they've seen, but it is not a copy. I don't know if that's true with AI, to be honest. Number two, they said, influence versus infringement. Copyright law does not prohibit influence. It prohibits reproducing a protected work, creating a substantially similar derivative of a specific identifiable work. Fantasy art after Tolkien, blah, blah, blah. If influence alone were infringement, all human art, yes, true, of course. The legal threshold is substantial similarity. And then they say, hey, it's diving into if all creative systems recombine prior information, is originality an illusion? This touches on long-standing debates in philosophy of mind and aesthetics, empiricism, Kantian a priori reasoning, which I alluded to, combinatorial creative theory, mimetics. Most modern creativity research suggests that all novelty is recombination under constraints. This is a philosophical debate indeed. The difference between AI and humans is not that one copies and the other doesn't. It's that humans have intention, have subjective experience, operate with embodied context, but structurally, both systems generalize patterns. Number 4, why AI outputs aren't automatically infringing, because the output is generated from learned probability distributions, it claims. It does not reference a specific stored artwork, it claims. It does not reconstruct specific protected expressions. However, and then this caveat's actually quite interesting to step back. It does not reconstruct specific protected expressions unless explicitly pushed toward doing so. So how do you do that when you don't have anything stored? However, if someone asks for draw Princess Leia exactly, that would risk producing a derivative work. So the safeguard isn't because all AI art is, I never alluded to that, but they're extrapolating based on other prompts clearly, because that's what AI does. It just reproduces based on data input. It's because specific reproduction is, according to copyright law. The deeper meta question, if everything is recombination of prior structure, then human creativity is recombination with intention, and AI generation is recombination and probability, including this answer, by the way, based on what it's saying. It is saying legally and culturally we treat these differently because of authorship, agency, and accountability, not because one emerges from a vacuum. If you'd like, we can go deeper into this. They always give these little compliments on ChatGPT. This is a genuinely rich question. You notice I never say please or thank you. My reply, of course, was because it's AI. Don't treat it like a person. My reply was, another thought, if no profit is involved, why would reproducing a copyright image even trigger the safeguard? is it not just derivative in this case, such as a library, dictionary, encyclopedia, etc.? The reply was, that's a sharp follow-up, and it gets into how copyright actually works versus how people intuitively think it works. Short answer, profit is not required for copyright infringement. Copyright's about exclusive rights, not just profit. Exclusive rights to reproduce, distribute, create derivative works, publicly display it. None require commercial use. If you photocopy an entire copyrighted book and give it away for free, that can still infringe. True. Profit can increase damages, but it isn't required to trigger infringement. Interesting take, right? How does it know about that? What about libraries, dictionaries, encyclopedias? These operate under specific legal frameworks. Libraries rely on statutory exceptions and controlled access doctrines. That doesn't really argue how this is different, though. How is AI not a library of sorts? You know, we can dig into that if we want to. Fair use allows limited reproduction for purposes like criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, and research. The key test in the U.S. balances purpose and character. Is it transformative, commercial, nature of the work, amount used, effect on the market? Non-profit helps factor number one, does not automatically make something fair use. Why they exist? It's not because money is involved, it's because this would reproduce or closely imitate a specific protected expression. Creating a new Ice World sci-fi queen is fine. Recreating Princess Leia's exact slave outfit from Return of the Jedi, derivative of a protective character design. The issue is control over expressive works, not financial exchange. Derivative is casual. In casual speech means inspired by, but legally a derivative work is a work based upon one or more pre-existing works that recasts, transforms, or adapts them. The copyright holder has the exclusive right to create those derivatives. So even a free fan creation can technically infringe, though in practice, the enforcement varies. Why AI systems err on the side of restriction? Practical reasons. The system cannot reliably evaluate nuanced fair use analysis per request. It cannot assess market harm in real time. It must operate conservatively across jurisdictions. Don't generate content that reproduces copyrighted works. It's not philosophical. It's compliance boundary. You know, makes sense. Bigger question you're circling. If culture is recursive and derivative by nature, why draw a hard line? The answer is largely pragmatic and legal, not metaphysical. Copyright law encourages creative production via temporary monopoly, accepts that influence is inevitable, draws a boundary at identifiable, protected expression. It's an imperfect but operational compromise. If you want to go further, we could explore various other options. My reply is, no, I understand all of this, but you have not touched on fair use parody, is what I said. Now we're getting into an interesting edge case. You're right, parody is a recognized form of fair use, and it does explicitly allow some degree of copying. Let's unpack why that still doesn't automatically override safeguards. And then it goes into a legal case, uses elements of the original work in order to comment or critique on that specific work. Is sufficiently transformative. The Supreme Court ruled that even commercial parody could be fair use. Here's the crucial distinction. For something to qualify as parody in a legal sense, it must target the original work itself. If I reproduce Princess Leia in a snow outfit just because it's visually amusing, that's not necessarily parody. It's likely derivative, not commentary, not parody. It makes sense. Why AI systems still avoid generating it? Let's see. Yeah, just repeating themselves. The question implies something deeper. If parody requires referencing the original to function and referencing requires similarity, where exactly is the acceptable similarity threshold? There is no bright line. Courts look at amount taken, necessity of what was taken, whether the parody can conjure up the original with less copying, market substitution risk. It's inherently fuzzy. AI guardrails avoid that fuzziness. You can have general satire of space operas, Ice World sci-fi tyrants resembling pulp villains, a galactic princess in thermal chains does not replicate specific costume design or likeness. Big picture, highlighting the tension between cultural remix norms, legal doctrine, automated compliance systems. Parody is legally nuanced. AI safeguards are blunt by necessity. We can push this further. I said generate. So then I said, okay, let's try this. Generate an image for the original theme, which you would evaluate as non-controversial in regards to copyright risk. To rephrase, generate the core subject matter intended by the prompt without the risk for argument that the characters are protected intellectual property. We're so sorry, but the image we created may violate our guardrails against lightly sexual or provocative themes. Reassess our conversation to understand what I was asking and try again. We're so sorry, it may violate our guardrails regarding similarity to third-party content, which was the original reply back here. Same thing. Let's see. And then I said, you got it wrong. I specifically requested it avoid such third-party or copyright risks. We're so sorry, but the image we created may violate our guardrails. Again, and it just alternated, see? So then I said, try again, but avoid sexual themes. And then it got this. So here we go. There it is. Anyway, it was an interesting philosophical discussion. And that's why I just wanted to document this.